We're going to pick up today with having the contract already. We've already walked in, talked to the sellers, got the contract. Now what? What the heck do I do with this? So let's pretend now the contract's in hand. How do they market this contract? Are they marketing the house? Are they marketing the contract? Are they disclosing it's just a contract?
Great question. Great question. That is a topic being debated in a number of different states with lots of different answers. So let me give you some guidelines that will work pretty much across the United States. If you're not the owner of record, if you do not have something on title that's recorded, claiming you got an ownership interest in the property, you can only market your contractual interest. And that means you have to disclose that it's a contract for sale. Now, that means you don't own the house. That means you can't advertise the house. That means you shouldn't show pictures of the exterior of the house. That means you shouldn't advertise the address of the house. The only state that provides an exception to that is Texas. Texas will let you do that as long as you have the disclosure language that Texas wants. Other states don't want you to do anything like that. It's merely, I have a contract for sale on a 2,000 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath bungalow in the Richmond Heights subdivision. If you're interested, contact me. And then from there, in a private communication, you can begin to release more information. And obviously, if they want to look at the contract, it's going to disclose the address of the property and everything else.
Okay.
I usually tell people, and I've gone down to the Department of Commerce with the realtors, and I've told them, if I'm buying a contract, let's say it's not even real estate, if I'm buying a contract for widgets, for pencils, there's going to be a picture of the thing in there. It's going to be disclosed what it is. They're not happy about it. I can tell you that. And usually, like we spoke before, it's not just about legal. It has to be what the underwriter for title wants. It's a lot easier just to make them happy. So although I might not necessarily agree with their assessment that you can't have a picture, they're the ones that are going to bring you in, and you're going to have to argue in front of them. And if you have to argue, you got to pay somebody to go down there with you.
Now, hang on, Angelo, because you and I are right. We might be saying the same thing. We might have a slight difference here. In the advertising of the contract for sale, I don't think you can use a picture. But I think you can put a picture of the property inside the contract.
Yes.
And say, as part of the contract, that the seller represents and warrants that the property will be in the condition as depicted in Exhibits 1 through 5, pictures of the house, at the time of closing.
That does sound like a loophole.
It's just two lawyers thinking things out.
I'm just saying that I may or may not have been in front of the Division of Real Estate, and Angelo may or may not have accompanied me at one time down there. And they may or may not have any idea what that answer is either, because it's a question I had to them. And there was a lot of debate. Is can you put a picture? And can you talk about the house? And I know, like with real estate agents will have assistants that will go and open doors for them and so forth, but they're not allowed to talk about the house, the price, or anything else. So how does that flow through to the investor world? I mean, because we were talking about once you enter dialogue with them, am I allowed to enter into dialogue, or is that even a no-no too, and I have to let someone just guess?
Dialogue with whom?
With my potential buyer.
Once I'm having a conversation with my potential buyer about them buying the contract from me, I can tell them anything I want to that's relevant to that transaction.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Tell them the address, have them at the house. This is what you're buying.
Because where the distinction is, and this is a point Angelo and I were both making, but I don't think we put it out clearly, is when you're doing a mass market advertising that can be seen by anybody and everybody, unless you have a signed listing agreement by the homeowner and you're a licensee, you can't advertise the house for sale. Now, when you're having a one-on-one private conversation or a small group private conversation, you can disclose the whole contract, you can disclose the address, you can put pictures in there and so on. Just make sure that if you're doing that via text message or email, you include a disclaimer in there, do not forward, confidential, private, etc.
Okay, let me bring all this back in. To everybody watching that's getting scared now saying, this whole wholesaling thing, I wasted all my money at that weekend boot camp.
No, they didn't.
All right, it's okay. Let me simplify this. You have a contract. If you saw the last episode that we all discussed, the cleanest, easiest way is to close the contract, and now they personally own this property, either themselves or in a corporation.